All right, so now we're starting with another long pose with different materials. This time these are going to be these waxier pencils, the Faber-Castell. I'm going to use a middle cadmium red and a black in these. So these are a little bit different than charcoal or the more Carbothello pencil in that they're a little bit waxier. So just keep that in mind, which is a different process. It's kind of nice. They're not quite as smudgy too as well. So we're going to go set in here for now a long pose and work this figure to relative completion as well. So I'm going to talk as I draw this time and not narrate, dub it over. So the sound quality won't be quite as nice, but I think we can all live through that as well. So, all right, first thing we want to do is start to compose. And one thing I teach my students in terms of composition, when you have a pose like this and you have a model where the head is not, or the hands or the arms are not above the head, you want to get that head really pretty high up in the composition, and so you can get most of the page in for the drawing. So we're going to start with the kind of the shape of the hair and the head and work our way kind of outward from that. So I'll take a few stabs at kind of what I want from the composition and kind of work my way through that. Just taking pains to keeping it really light as we work through our gesture. So when you have a back of the head pose and it's the hair, you want to feel that cranium through that head. So I'm kind of feeling where the head oval roughly would be, and through all that. Of course, that'll get covered up as we go through the drawing further. But roughly right in through here. But it's pretty much ultimately going to be shape oriented for now, just because of the mass of hair that we have within the figure. That's going to distort a little bit in the beginning, but you get through that. But you want to kind of feel that cranial structure as she's ultimately looking away from us and kind of downward too as well. So you can almost feel like the skull is roughly doing something. I'm thinking kind of like that. I don't want to get too detailed. I don't have to. So we can keep that as clean as we can, but we want to get that hair relatively settled and in, so we can start to feel that through now. Feel the gesture of the shoulders coming through here, and then we can start to now feel our way through the back a little bit here, feeling the way through. Usually gently feel that center part of the spine, so I can start to feel where the lima bean is gonna be put. I think probably one of the hardest things to do is to obviously draw the figure. That's why we're spending a colossal amount of time. You can spend, and you will spend years and years if you want to master this. But a good deal of time, again, thinking about all these processes that go on within the figure and the model, so we can have a better chance at drawing really good figurative, traditional kind of more academic approaches to the figure. Then later on you can do what you want with it, and I encourage that. So the buttock is going to be a little further out and through there. So we're getting a feel for that. You can feel that lima bean form where we have the upper torso, the rib cage, the middle part of that, the abdomen, the obliques, and the back part of the erector spinae, and then of course we have the abdomen, and then the buttock and pelvic units or regions coming together to make, again, that bean form to help with that pose in through here. So we're feeling around that gesture, feeling now the arm coming through now to the elbow roughly in through here over, which will be the hands, kind of been sitting in through. Now I can tell you already probably won't get all the leg down here, but I want this to be full. I'm not as interested, quite frankly, in all of that, and that's okay too, as well. If you wanted to get that, I would have had to shrink this a little bit further as well, so and I'm okay with that. So now we'll come down, or come over to the shoulder region, to the model's elbow to elbow here, and probably crop a little bit with regard to the hands too as well. Now I could change that. You know, we could come up and we could say, all right, so if I have enough skill to change that, we could move that up. I might do 2 of those just to show you what could happen. I think I actually will in this demo to see how you can change it if you've got the confidence. If not, that's okay too. But I'm going to show you where the normative hand and arm would go out of the composition, and then possibly what I could do to remedy that, to bring this back maybe in and develop a pose, you know, more on the inside with the bicep ultimately later on would be a little flex. I think that will be a good thing for you to see, and a challenge for you too as well, to draw also what's out of your head and also what is you're getting from the model exclusively, because we're not copying the model. What we're doing is we are analyzing the pose, and we can change that pose if we want, and if you have the confidence to do that as well. Coming in through, getting a little bit more now of this deltoid, ovoid kind of egg structure through there. Nice and soft on these materials as they slide through. Now this is going to be, since I'm going to draw a little bit of her forearm too as well, of what we see in the image, and out, and crop that out a little bit, but I'm also going to show you too as well, just like I said obviously earlier, to see this in a different light. So that's what we normally kind of get, this is gesture, and then as it's flexed, it's these flexors and extensors are going to come over. This bicep here is going to get raised a little bit further. She's fairly fit toned here, so we're going to get this up, and we'll just feel the arm and of course the hand. That'll be a challenge. Do that. And this will be kind of in flexing in here too, so we might get something a little along the lines of that. I haven't decided what I'll do with that hand yet proper, but we'll figure that out, and the gesture can change. So see how that you can get multiple views. You see this a lot in master drawings where they're drawing out of their head, or they're drawing from a model, they're trying different poses out and see what they like. And you can do that too as well. And this will flex some. Get a little bit bulkier here. Tricep will be roughly in through. I don't want to get too detailed in through there yet. This feels pretty good. You throw the leg in. Start to get the leg and the knee coming over, feeling over the vertical alignment here. We'll pass the elbow with the knee roughly, coming down off the model here. Buttock around through, sitting on that seat. That nice little kind of swing thing that's going on. It's a nice pose. Again, Croquis Cafe imagery. If you haven't used them before, they're great to use, and certainly you want to donate if you're using rigorously. Give a little bit, $50, whatever. I don't have any connection to them. I've never met the owners, married couple. They seem to be doing a good job there, and we want to support that. So it's not a promo, it's just I like what I like, and I'll tell you what I think is professional, and they do a good job. But I don't get any money because we're public service. We don't make, no money is made on this venture, much to the chagrin of my wife. When that's okay. She understands. Here we go. And she's supportive too of the mission of this. She's a great person. Here we go. Pelvic crest, roughly right in through that region. So you can see I use the side of my pencil some. I use the tip. And sometimes you see me do this little mark. I'm making lines, kind of drawing sort of this way or that way. It's kind of an incisive kind of cut line. It's just the way the pencil holds, sometimes this way It's just rubbing through there. All right, so we're getting down to now the back of the leg and through here, hamstring, where she's starting to sit down a little bit and getting a little clear with it. Everything can be still pretty adjusted. Feeling that knee coming down in this way. So we'll definitely crop some, which is okay. We can, all right, to crop a little bit and out. I'm gonna get out some on that. Get that leg in through here. Lower leg coming down with the calf outward and through. Indicating the first tendon there, the biceps femoris. Vastus lateralis, just getting that feeling. Don't want to get too specific yet. Certainly, we have a long way to go. Biceps femoris, leg, really bulky in through there. And then coming down with this knee to the gastrocnemius or calf area. Around, coming down, just marking the end of the patella region to the top of the tibia crest there, the triangular kneeling joint, or the part of that bone, the tubercle there in the front. Gastrocnemius, soleus behind it, egg form, feeling that egg form through there. How loose and light this is, gestural. Lots of chances to make errors and corrections. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing can be set, has to be set in stone. You can make a lot of corrections way through the drawing process. Very far into the drawing process. And I think I will be showing you that in some of these long videos. You're going to make mistakes. I make them all the time. All the time. Coming through now to that little bench that's sitting through here a little bit. We'll just feel that kind of coming through here and over. Just gently bring that line all the way through so you can lightly see it come through. You know, in these long-term poses, those of you in the YouTube land, my students too, they're here for your viewing pleasure. Well, yeah, but they're here for also, and you can see where this is a little bit lower, so I'm going to bring this leg up. They're here for you to draw with me too as well, and you can slow this video down and draw quite a bit with me, and so that we can together, you can better see all this kind of coming together. Bring that a little bit lower and through here. Coming through, bring that knee about right to there. There we go, so we can see that swing coming through a little bit further into here. See how light we can keep that. Let it be a sketch, let it be a long-term drawing that is very much a drawing and not something that's so hardcore photographically real. I don't really promote that as much. It's not really something I promote. Not that that's a bad thing, but we're just sketching, long-term sketching, more Renaissance and Baroque kind of techniques. So this is a little bit more horizontal than I had to bring that up a little bit. Now we can reshape this knee a little bit, shorten this. We need to bring that over a little. There we go. And around. It feels a little bit better maybe. We can bring that patella down, back of the leg. Lots of errors to make and correct. It's okay. Make them out. Make them work for you. Don't be afraid to correct and change, and live with some things that are just okay too. I could have lived with that, but let's go ahead and correct it now, and get it even closer, more accurate. Sometimes I like the changes. We're going to make one there. That's okay too. Okay. Through there. And get this butt. It's a little bit square in the back and through, not quite as round. through here. A little bit more showing through and over till we get the split of the buttock with a cracking through there. There we go. Bringing this leg down now, a little bit more of an angle here. So coming off the other glute and over this way and through. There we go. Kind of a shape. Biceps femoris coming through and over. Like so. There we go. And then around, and we'll just get the shape of that patella region. And over through. A little gathering there with the tendon. Very gesturally, of course. But of course, that tends to want to angle down a little bit further to count it. We can start the calf bulge, tibia area, and then the tibialis anterior region on this side to give us that bigger, better bulge there. And then we're going to be on our way out the door now of the composition. We'll let that just kind of just go off for now. Get her located there. So we can start to fill our way up through here a little bit, define a little cleaner before we start to begin to lay in the shadow shapes, and of course go into the block in as well. So, all right, so I'm going to come back up and begin to work now on the deltoid here, shoulder. Okay, get it a little cleaner with the line. So I'm incising that line a little bit further. So you're coming over to the top where the clavicle starts to get a little closer to meeting. And through here, a boxy like so. And through here to the trapezius and the scapula, which is extended here pretty good over and through. So we'll get that working, which happens to fall roughly on that core shadow, which is pretty interesting coincidence as well. And through this, more of this hair will come through, but I'll draw the anatomy out and over and through that a little bit further. And through here where her spine, the cavity of her spine, the erector spinae hug against that spinous processes of the model, or the spinal column-ish back areas. And this will tend to curl back in. You get us to the lower rib cage, about the 10th or so of that back divot, and then really pull a little bit lower. Pull it through, over and around. Really lovely shaped model, very, very elegantly posed gesture that she's got going. Deltoid in through here to figure out and get that shoulder cleaned up a little bit and over the lateral end of this. Feel that a little bit. That deltoid, and you have the other head, and it tends to curl this way. It's not an anatomy lesson, but I'll throw some stuff in just to have it there. Scapula, to part of the interior part of that crest where the teres major and minor are resting. Through here a little bit, and it's an interesting shape. So I'm going to start to pick up also that bone there, and then this is form shadow too as well, coming down the back. So the light source again is coming from the left in front of the model. Can you see the cast shadow made on the lower foot coming back and away from us, back to the drapery back there? So we know it's high, and we know it's to the left of the model, and in front of the model too as well. So coming down here. journeying back up, finding a little bit of that Layin of the shadow shape too. So we can kind of get all this at once since we're putting it all together. The other prior videos before the long-term poses, I separate those techniques out further so we can clearly see them. But as you start to get more involved in your drawing process, you'll combine these and do different things. And quite frankly, for the layman, that will look a little confusing until you start to get to a point where it comes together further. That happened to me with some of my professors, and then some of the advanced students that I saw when I wasn't, that were doing that. And I got confused about what are they seeing, and then I realized, oh, there it is all together. It's like, well, that's an advanced way of seeing that I wanted to do for my own knowledge, and then break those rules to separate myself and be distinctive over time to various degrees of success and failure. So this erector spinae set over here in the back is split in two, and you want to make sure that ultimately that spine will rest as a divot inside there. It's like a water trough. There we come through this buttock and over, get those shadow shapes around the glutes here. Roughly flexed a little bit to help support the weight of what she is doing. Right in through here and over trochanter area, roughly in here. These shapes can be simplified in the beginning, and then we'll modify them and get a lot more complex. If you'll keep them simpler, they'll go faster, and then you can modify as you get closer to getting what you want out of your pose, out of the pose. I think that's part of the trick, is to begin to have students see that. Not see everything at once and be so doggone confused by it, because I certainly was there. No doubt. Okay, so we have that. And coming up, I'm going to bring this line, come on over through here and up and over, so I can see this area of the thigh, the rectus femoris muscle coming over. Gets a little straighter here, then we're going to get a little fat bulge where all that comes together. This is part of the abdomen coming over and down. Then we'll pull her around and through here. So here, start to adjust a little bit, bring that hair up a little bit and over. Always making those adjustments, and we're going to see her abdomen here and through rib cage now. The very end of it at 12th rib coming in through. You can feel the rhythm of those ribs coming through and down and over. All right, and we'll start to ultimately get to a point where we get that really more angled curve. See how it sets apart right through there. It separates the rectus abdominis from the obliques as they start roughly in through here. And that can be a softer kind of contoured or soft edge. Either way is going to work. And through here, and then we get that gathering of skin, a little bit of fat, not a whole lot, but a little bit. We all have it, and it's important. It's good to have, so we get this little crease through here, coming together and down and over. We'll check that. There we go, coming through now. It seems to be decently working. Right, so cast shadow now on this lower thigh. Could be a little bit longer. Biceps femoris down. I'm going to take this down a little bit. That shape lower. And it's so simple because it's kind of a simple shape that I see right now. Less of a form. And I'll just squeeze this. See, I can take that down a little bit now. Down and over. Make sure she comes back. There we go. And that'll clean up when you start to add value and line and clean up your drawing. All that goes away. You notice we don't really erase a ton. It's not because we don't make mistakes, because we do. Or I do. I don't know who the we is. But I do, and sometimes I leave them. I think that confuses. Sometimes this is not, doesn't have to be exact to the image. It could be it's interpretation. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we have to recognize that as to why you want to change later on, and that takes some time to learn that skill too, as well as we're coming through. So feeling pretty good about some of the start we have here. So I'm going to come over and finish this deltoid lat area, teres major, minor area. They all kind of come together and attach onto the humerus. Here's through there. And over and down with the forearm. Now that's the tricep. Right through there, and of course that's going to get a little flex. This might bulge a little further later, so I'm gonna leave it. We'll think through that region. It's going to be close to the same here, but this is going to get changed and over later on. These flexors and extensors of the forearm. So we can now add the little bit of the breast, her left breast form that begins to show through. So there we go, and then we've got the little edge of the pectoral there. Will start to be a little lip. It's kind of a shape kind of thing. We know we don't want to go any lower than here. This kind of comes in the rib cage. As you can see how the fattier tissue part of the breast sits on top of the pectoral. It makes a nice little undercutting divot. We want to overcut it to make that work. We never really want to cut into the model by undercutting. That's something I learned in art school. And also I think from Robert Beverly Hale is his instruction through books, is that we don't want to X-Acto knife into the model. So that's an interesting thing. So if you undercut into the model, it's like you're taking a little biopsy of the model, which we don't want to do. We always want to just come in and around the model, which is quite important for us to denote, obviously. So let's keep going on that. Breast form coming down, simple form here and around, tear duct kind of shape, and through here up a little bit and over. Still relatively young woman's breast. Down and through a little bit. And this probably could go a little lower. There we go. Just bring that down a little bit. Right in through there, so we can cut, undercut. Lovely shape to that. Actually, I'm going to bring that down even lower, so I'm going to take that off. So I'm going to erase here a little bit. Clean that out. There we go. And we'll come down just a little bit lower to make sure that we have this on a little bit better. Here. And now we can start. So that's going to bring that breast form here and over. Nipple sitting in right about there. So and then a really nice tear ducty kind of under curve. So a little bit lower there. There we go. To double check yourself. I do. And let's see. I'll take my mono eraser. Take that a little stronger. That's the only drawback sometimes when you want to erase with working with wax. It doesn't come all the way off. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind underdrawing in the drawing. It was a sketch. So this will come down and then we'll overcut the turn over here and then back over, cutting over just a little. There we go. And more in. And that comes now internally. So we have to go in the model where that rectus abdominis ends out over. It's a much better conclusion there. That's elegant. And then back over now to the oblique right in through there. So you're always correcting. Some you catch early, some you catch late, some you don't, some you live with, and some you need to make changes to. So hopefully we'll get that all on camera for you. And no matter your area of experience. We all make mistakes. I don't even call them mistakes. I just call them needed additions or changes. It's totally okay. Right in through and over. Feeling that crest over through here. It's kind of light. Just want to feel that pelvic crest coming in through and over. A trochanter would be there. All right, so that's feeling pretty good. Just as a simple kind of lay-in. I want to work now this back shoulder here before we move to another layer of information, and we start to block in what we've got going in through here. So we start to feel this coming over. This comes up the trapezius, and of course that goes into her neck, which will be up here. So if you're having trouble with, anatomy, this is another thing where this can get on you a little bit. You have to be careful. So there's the trapezius coming up into that area. 7th cervical vertebrae would probably be roughly right in through there, where I kind of make a little tone mark. And so the head would be looking now back and down like so. Can you feel the skull, the occipital region? So we can start to feel that under that hair. The more you can feel it under the hair, boy, do you really got something, going to help you with some of the difficult passages that you may have, or that you're going to encounter certainly in drawing. So getting this shoulder, trapezius, deltoid region. I'm going to leave a lot of that detail out for now. Just get the shape, because we can come back in and tone and get that. We just want to get all this sort of cleaned up. We'll make more of a straight line here because we can get those rolls of contraction as we go along further. I'm going to get too detailed too quick. We're still in a gesture kind of volume-ish, contour line-ish phase with all this goodness and good stuff. So I'll just kind of indicate some of that there, and then we can bring her arm down. There we go. Through that and over and through, pulling that around and over. Elbow, olecranon area, condyle, medial to lateral here, up and around, in through here. So I'm looking at that negative space in that buttock, region, through here where the sacrum is too as well, where that separates and comes over. We'll clean all that up with good old-fashioned value and tone with our block in here in a little bit. So we want to see all this come together, gesture coming down with the arm, so I can make changes that I need to here, in through, roughly coming down and over. This egg form of the flexors and extensors of the forearm, very eggy, egg-like form, trapezius, elbow area. That interesting joint that we have there. So I want to bring this down a little bit, probably a little bit lower to there. There we go. And through there. Coming down. And then we start to get into the wrist. And through that gets butted up against the buttocks. And sometimes it's hard to tell which is in front of which, or which is overlapping. They're kind of abutted. Generally now we'll just keep that in this simple shape. And it's kind of angled, not quite profile, but it's a little bit angled towards us and then out to the right. So we'll come over with a simple gesture of the wrist, and then we're getting into the hand area. We'll keep this very planar and very simple for now. Gonna flatten through here, and then just pulled. See how it pulls at an angle? It's not flat across or horizontal across. Pull that little bit of an angle here, joints here, Alright, carpal there. And then over, we're going to keep that very planar for now, then we'll clean that up a little bit too later on. I think we've got most of what we need here, so I'm going to get this bicep tricep area in here a little cleaner, the edge. And we'll go back and clean that up. I'm going to add black to this later on too as well for some areas to show you that. And we'll get this shadow shape that's going to be important. See how it kind of comes down. This is cast shadow. How do I know that? It's being cast on the model from her torso. So later on it'll be a little sharper edge. Then onto a little bit now of the forearm. And then over. And now we're going to have the ulnar radius exposed. So form shadow, but it's really right on that bone edge. It's really kind of sharp. Very interesting. Down into the ulnar edge of the ulnar P. Cast shadow will be roughly in through here. They kind of meet up. That's pretty much all we'll see on that. Now to that fun arm up here now. So you can see where we had it before, or where it had it before, where it's going to be, where it's naturally going to be in the image. Okay, so this works out to the brachioradialis, or some of the connection between the bicep and the humerus and the ulnar radius. And so that would continue on and we could be done with that. But I thought, to bring it back in, to make some adjustments to show you that and to show you how cool this experience can be. Once you start to get a feel for these things, you can do that with me if you want, or you don't have to, but I thought I would show you that. So let me get out of this leg, get back up to where I'm supposed to be. Hello. And so, okay, we're going to imagine this elbow now flexed and bent, and we're going to imagine the bicep more flexed into the extensors and flexors, and we're going to be these extensors on the top, are going to be more in flexed pose. So that's going to bulge this out. Just think of it as an egg form. So we're going to bring this over, right, to here, over and over, right, and we're going to overlap and put it in behind that bicep. Now we're going to get on the side of the hand that we don't see the back of the wrist. So we're going to see more in the front. So this would be a little bit more exposed in through here and over. Wrist proper would start about right in through here, more blocky in its connection. So we get that connection through to here. And so she's kind of has her finger pointed there. And so here's where it gets a little fun and a little dicey. It's like, okay, what do you do with that? What do I want to do with that pose? Well, okay, let's see. We're going to see the thumb, the thenar grouping here of the thumb pad and over. Do I want to pull it back or do I want to extend it? Don't know yet. I really don't know yet. So we're going to just play around until I get something that I kind of like, or I kind of want to use. And it may take several passes, or I might keep it in a fist. That might be, easier, but we're really taking that left. You can kind of pose that a little bit to see if there's something that, you like. Maybe we can get this going, right? Something like that. Up and through. We're just going to see ultimately later on when it emerges. So a lot of times what I'll do is when I'm groping for something or a pose, I'll say, okay, we'll come over and I'll just get something. It's going to be softer because it's all gestural. We can just kind of take that back and go for it again here. And say, okay, so I've got here. So this is all non-information from the model and totally now out of our head. This might come up a little bit here. We might get something like that and over. Let's see. Okay, thinking it through. in through there. Okay, so we can see this larger proximal knuckle of the thumb. Only has two, proximal and distal. There's no medial there. Something maybe kind of like that. Through to there. So I'm thinking about anatomy, thumb anatomy. Just thinking about, actually even more about just the feeling of the gesture. What I want to do with that. So we can have a pinky coming out. Could do all kinds of things through there as well. All right, now continuing on with the hand. This is the next day, so I had to break from where we just cut that to go teach, and then now I'm back the next day. It's kind of good so I can think about the hand a little bit. So I thinned this out. I did a little bit of thinking before I got back on camera. I thinned this out a little bit here. That's going to have to thin out. So remember, we're changing her viewpoint. And so now we're going to raise her arm up a little bit. And then I just kind of been the last 30 seconds before I got back on camera, looking a little bit at what I want to do with the fingers a little bit. And so you can see some of the challenges that's going to present when you alter and change, and you rely on what you know too as well. And the less you know, the less you'll be able to do that with some kind of sense of clarity or purpose, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. So we're going to thin this out a little bit in the hand and through here, and begin to work a little bit more in this manner. So we're going to pull this over now, this thenar area or palm area in front and through here. And so thinking about pulling this finger this way here, and pull it a little bit more downward here and over. So thinking about these blockier kind of forms, and I take a little bit of foreshortening perspective, and I'm probably gonna, since the finger would be a little more rested, this will come in a little bit. So now I've got kind of a working gesture in all this madness, if you will. Through here, got a little bit bulkier in through, like so. And don't be afraid. See how I'm also shortening or tightening up the gesture that I had in through there. That can be all taken out with tone over the rest of it later on. So feeling that thumb now as it's going to go back. It's kind of slightly turning to the side a little bit. So there's kind of the knuckle joint of the proximal, medial, distal. It'll kind of tuck back underneath. That's kind of a resting pose that I saw in through there that I like. This will get a little bit fatter. Taken through there and then coming down, and then this finger, I'm gonna have it maybe slightly coming down even further and then tucked back. So it's going to be very knuckle oriented there. And it will get this finger to really tuck back in as it's kind of closed, slightly kind of closed in like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking in my mind through here. So we have that kind of idea. This will get tucked through there a little bit. And I'll clean this up later. And so I'm going to pull, you could pull, probably actually I'm going to pull this thumb out and bring the finger a little bit more tucked back in. I think that'll help as well. We'll come through and downward. And then we'll pull that finger in, tuck it back up and through. So it curls back in and get that thumb to, I'm going to erase a little bit in that area. Get that cleaned up just a little bit further. Right in through here. Pull it out and get that thumb to sit a little bit more behind it, like so. And then we'll get, later on we'll pull the darker pencil to pull it out just a little bit further in here. We'll separate, this knuckle will go a little higher and through here, and it gets infinitely easier as we get this gesture coming through. This will go down and disappear through there and curl and tuck through here and over. We have our next, for our fourth finger here, and then the pinky will just slightly emerge right in through there and over. And all that gets pretty much disappeared through. There we go. All right, so I feel like I've got a decent gesture working now through there of her hand. All right, so wrist. We'll bring this in a little bit thinner here and pop out a little bit more thickness in through there. I feel like that works decently well. There we go. Okay, so got that tackled. So big changes that I applied to the hand. I think it's good to see. Then we can clean it up when we get even a little bit deeper into that area. I might even change this, looking at that. That might even get down further. So let's change it. I'm going to change that even. See that angle? I don't like that angle. I'm going to change it. That feels a little bit more comfortable here. And that might push that a little longer and then tuck that in even tighter through there. I think that was going to be a little bit better for us to read that onward. All right, so and we're back through. We've got that working for us. All right. Now we might even see, in terms of our light, in terms of shadow here, it'd be light source coming from the left and in front. So that's going to push maybe, she'd be illuminated through here a little bit. And this might get this hand now as we start to lay in and then just gently block in with shadow. That might start to get these fingers in more shadow, definitely in through here. We'll start to turn all this, kind of hide all that a little bit in shadow. She's kind of raising her hand. She could be holding on to like a pole or back against that chain she's having, or you could set in a different pose, or the chain could be through her knuckles a little bit, something along that lines. I generally don't really bother with that as much. So I'm coming through a little bit thinner through here a little bit. And as I start to tighten this up, and that gets a little bit, and get us a little bit, I think, closer to what we need as well. I'm going to put a lot of this later on this hand in deeper shadow, and I'll clean that up later as we get through our block in, lay in stage. So blocking is shadow. So I'm going to imagine a shadow here, and then the forearm will get through here as it connects. See, it would connect up back across here, be a full. We don't want to make her too full because she's not bulky. She's tall and slender, and so we don't want to give her too much of a bulk. I tend to overbulk figures even when they're slender. That's just my type of style for academic kind of coursework. All right, so now we want to start to block in the entire shadow shapes that we have. So let's go find them. And so we're imagining across here. So we're adding in our block in tone. So I'm going to see it that way later on with the coarse shadow, which will be kind of roughly there. I'm going to imagine we'll come down and start to tackle the forearm here. And this will get slider and turn over to the elbow. Through here and turn like so. Okay. And generally when I draw academically or more traditionally, if you however you want to say, you think about that, as I tend to have a little tone and then a contour line on top of that tone. It's kind of a hedge between a little bit of Rembrandtish contouring, a little bit of Rubens toning, I suppose, but I take into account everybody I've studied throughout time or throughout art history. All right, so now we're coming through a little bit now on this forearm here, and excuse me, not forearm, but back of the arm, tricep, and through here a little bit, and that'll get that tendon will get us, or the end of that muscle tendon will get us all the way down to the lateral part of the elbow there. Here we go. Okay, so we can kind of get that blocked in. And if we want, we'll do a little block in here. The background tone, start to get that working for us. And see, we can cover that up, that change that we made. I want to show it, because I want you to see that. So I want to try not to take that out. So you'll see that. Change it through here. So working with these wax pencils is a little more labor intensive because of the softness, or the lack of softness of the pencil itself. So I'm going to come in. There we go. A little tighter in through here. All these have a little bit different slot positioning later on. Coming in, working the deltoid to the bicep. And this is a little bit more in flex now than what she has before, so we're changing that just a little. Bulk of that head about right here and over. Then the deltoid up. We wouldn't change too much here. Maybe a little bit, but I'm not going to change much of it. Up to there, and then of course we start to block in the hair. I'm going to go back over that in darker tone and a black, a multi-toned drawing. Up a little higher. You can see with her hair. Just continuing to analyze that shape as I need it off the cranium. And through there. And we'll start to put all this, bathe all this back in a tone. For now. I'm just kind of following what I see as the rhythm of her hair. Not worried about every strand of hair. Matter of fact, I really generally simplify and try to teach my students to simplify the hair, to control that hair, not draw every strand of hair. And we'll come back around the back part, and this will get changed. Look a little further. And this gets curled in. Just working that blunt side of my pencil, side of that pencil, just to keep a little tone going. There we go. And through there. Okay, now we want to start to block in the body forms now, body position with finding our shadow shape, cleaning it out, and then blocking in kind of all together. Deltoid in through here, right in through there. It'll get a shadow shape. It's kind of a blockier form. For now, simplify these shadow shape forms across now the scapula as it pops out, and then it follows along roughly the shape of the scapula in through here. Try to simplify all that. For now, keep it simple. We'll come in through here and start to grab some of this background tone for now. In addition to, see how I can just group all that together, place all that in within my disposal. It's all in shadow. Even the background will be darker than what we have it now, so we can get that come across here to the front. Lovely cast shadow on the breast form there, or in the back of the breast form, kind of encapsulating it a little bit. So you notice I'm blocking in the background and the forms all together. Group them all together. You can get a faster read on the drawing and be more efficient. So it's not only in trying to draw as efficient as possible, but also as clear as possible. I think that's sometimes we have students who get enamored, they come in from high school with kind of drawing from photographs only, and they get enamored by it, and they have a hard time switching over to their thinking. We start drawing from the figure about putting it all together quicker, and it takes them a while. Sometimes they balk at the idea of more Renaissance trained ideas in drawing, in only because it takes a little bit more time. Sometimes it's easier to get a student who's got talent. You have to have some talent there that has less of an ego for learning. And I know all this quite well because I was one of those students that had more of an ego. It took me a while to get past all that a little bit. So I'll clean up this shape now of the lat area on the right side. Just get that curve in through there. It's another bulgy curve in through here. See how I'm coming out with the form and not digging in. Little stronger divots there. And then out to the oblique on the back. And then inside in the sacral. Right in through there, past that reflected light where that butt's coming from, and then outward. Outward there. And roughly later onto her arm. And then we're getting overlap now the inner tricep area. So just cleaning up this shape now, this silhouette too of her anatomy. And around through, bulk the deltoid a little bit, tweak that for now, just slightly, keep it soft. Soften that out a little. It's hard to see, but this will dip inside to the olecranon area, condyles of the ulna and the radius, humerus and ulna and radius as they come together. Here in the cross, dips inside and over. So we're blocking in, laying in, blocking in, mopping in, if you will. That too, a little bit larger in through here, then soft, coming down. So let's keep going. So I'm kind of doing it all a little bit together, and then the core shadow, finding the form shadow linear area where I just lay it in with line. All right, and then we'll block all that in, mop it in, block it in, all together. Finding that shadow shape underneath, cast shadow here, over across the elbow, over. That'll go darker. But you see the illumination that starts to happen. So she begins to be illuminated and lit. There. Come down a little bit, thin out this wrist a little bit further. And see her forearm here that comes over the buttock now. She reaches behind that a little bit and over. Thin that out a little bit. You still just want to keep that simple for now. And then out a little further, flatter. Pretty much a wedge. Keep it to a wedge for a while. And then we'll come back and we'll clean up that hand a little bit when we need it. Kind of a wedge there. I'll put that a little bit more in shadow. And I can take that off if I want. There we go. And then I can pull all this in shadow here. do adding kind of the beginnings of a coarse shadow. All right. Moving down the buttock region. Slight pull the rib cage here, going back in this direction, the very bottom of it, 12th rib area, from lumbar area, from thorax to lumbar area, thoracic area. For now, soften that up a little bit. And this tends to want to pull back this way. It's hard to read, but we get a little bit of tone under the breast, right in through there. That tells us that. A little shadow tone under the breast there. You can see this kind of pull around the rib cage with the lats over the top of it, so they're hidden more. Also the erector spinae through there. All right, so we'll come across, getting that shadow shape here, like so. Coming around. Okay, and then over. And let's get that shadow shape now, the gluteus maximus area, right in through here. So we're blocking that in. We kind of already had that going already, and it splits to little striated sections. You've got more tone going there. Okay. And we see that I'm just going to put some value here, semi-tone in through here. I really don't like using it where it's semitones. Just I'll put form shadow. Don't want to start using that. I think that gets a little confusing. Curve this out a little bit more for now. We'll continue to work that kind of shadow here, downward, and then form shadow on the hip and buttock region area, trochanter back down to the biceps femoris through here. Of course, around. And I'm going to pull all that down to tone to the cast shadow. Kind of vary the stroking pattern a little bit. So cast shadow on that bench here. Block in. And through there. Kind of a towel for support, cleanliness there. Coming off and over. And not as interested in all that for now. We'll kind of come back up and over here. We can come off. Just run that up and over and out a little bit more. All right, so we have that. So we're working on the buttock region. Back to this. We'll divot in through here. You can see I give a soft tone, and I come across with a kind of a half shortened contour tone just to give direction, length and direction through here. Just getting a subtle toning of some of those muscle forms in here. There and over. Okay. Come down this leg. And through. Clean that up a little bit. And I'm going to pull most of this leg in shadow. I'm going to make it a little darker. This is a cast shadow. It's got a lot of reflected light going in that, but I'm going to pull this down in shadow. So there's a cast shadow here from the bench that I want to keep, but I'm going to throw all this more in shadow for now too as well. That'll help define that tone a little further. So see how we're combining background tone with our block and our lay-in as well to get it all working together. Come over to the knee. And over to the patella and into the tibia. Tubercle there, condyles, kneeling point, and then back to the semi-tendinous and membranous running through here, back of the leg. Rich kind of curve, a little gathering of fats, fleshier. That connection there, tendon there, coming up and over. Through. I'm going to start this calf a little bit too full. Come down a little bit. Bone, and then a little bit of the tibialis anterior. And out, the calf. And then we see a calf shadow across that calf there. You can pull that over. There we go, and then downward. We'll let that sort of fade out there in that leg. Now we're coming back over to the dominant leg here. And over. Let that shape a little bit as we lay in, block in. Coming through to the knee, down to the, all the tendons start to group together. Down to the patella region here, kneecap if you will. There we go, through. A little tighter region. This is all going to get a little bit in tone for now. We'll simplify that for now. Slight tones, it turns away from us. Remember, we have the meeting of the two heads of the femur and the tibia and fibula through here. And coming across. And then we get to see these muscles, tendons and muscles here. Kind of a shadow shape. Right in through and over. Nice, beautiful curve, elegant curve here. Soft, form shadows for now. And they are more defined here, and then they start to fade away. But it's a nice, beautiful curve. Just the way that's lit has that nice curve to it. Nice toned leg. And we'll let that start to fade out. Through, up and over. You can see that starts to meet up a little bit, and the bulk of that thigh is really right in through here where that binge crease is, flesh, muscle coming together. Right in through that region. Which gets us back to the leg. And then on into the buttock region and through there. So I'm still just, very simple, basic drawing techniques, and still in the early, believe it or not, earlier stages, right? Hamstring, biceps femoris, and then tendon coming over to the fibula. Right in through here, bonier area. You can feel it on your person, on yourself. Through there. Then it gets pretty dark and hidden. Back and over. It turns way over, so we'll find that calf shadow there, here, and then form shadow off the calf or gastrocnemius soleus area. Through here, and tighten up that edge. Coming down, up and over. Kind of feel this egg form as it comes around. Tibialis anterior. Whoops. There we go. warm shadow across there. There's some shadow in the background. I'm going to let that fade over. Fade and fade. All right, I think we're there now with our lay-in and our block-in. Now we can start to work core shadow and start defining and getting more detailed. I'm going to work in red, and I'm going to intersperse it too also with the black pencil. All right, I'm going to sharpen it up and come back, and we'll continue on. Okay, so now we're ready again for the more refined. We've got our mop in, and we want to start adding coarse shadow and definition to the drawing. And so I'm going to start back up here now in the hair region of the drawing and start to define, get a little bit closer to what we want to get as a finish, but not completely, so we can go back and refine a little bit further. So I'm having to reach pretty far with this table, but that's my issue and not yours. So we have that. So it's pretty much in a tone overall. I don't want to erode that. We just want to be rhythmic with our lay-in and our toning. Getting that feel. See that feel, the movement of her hair that comes off a little bit. There could be a little air, a fan blowing in there that could blow that, or just the curls or the waviness of the hair in general, which gives it movement. We're always looking for something to get off from just a blob, especially in the back of the hair. To be careful about that. So we have that here, around. We have that coming over. So we have that through, so trying to get a feel for some of these rhythms, just coming around where it opens up a little lighter in through here. See how I'm just varying my stroke as much as I can. You know, it's handling hair is a real kind of a bear. I've got some requests to do some a video on here, and I'll get to that at some point, but this is kind of a beginning part of that, if you will, of it. So you can see how the hair tone reaches through the back tone of the model, all that reflected light and shadow, essentially. Most shadow becomes reflected light. We just call it shadow, but it's, unless it's completely dark, which would be in a vacuum. She's not in a vacuum. I don't mean a vacuum cleaner, for those of you that are wondering. When I was a kid, I used to think, when I heard that term, I'm like, how are they in a vacuum cleaner? I don't get that. So, but I'm a little joke. Because to show you how dumb I was as a kid. I don't know if I've changed much, but. So I've got tone, a little stroking going on. I'm going to also start to add some dark in there too as well. So I've got a pretty good read on that. I'm not going to go full finish value. And I might actually also suggest, when you're working in colored pencil like I am for this one, that you don't necessarily have to go for full finish value or get something close to it, because it's such a waxy material. It takes so long to build up the dark that maybe as long as your values all relate well, we'll buy a lighter feeling to it, but they have to relate. I'll show you what I mean about that as we go forward. So I think that's going to be the case. It might take twice as long in a video to get to a ton, because the drawing is fairly big, 18 by 24 for wax pencil. So I might have got a little too big there. So just feeling some shades. See how this curls down? The rhythm is down and through. It's like a little arrow direction arrows. That's part of what I'm thinking, in my thinking. in through there and coming across, feeling a little bit of a depth area where there's a little bit of darker where there are curls, so it's a lighter and darker. The lighter areas come up higher and the darker areas kind of go back into the head a little bit. It's one of those things you got to look at art history. You got to get a look at seeing other artists, how they handle it, and just quite frankly a little practice. See, I might wind up with a value scale, my darkest darks, somewhere in here, which are probably about 7s on a value scale, 1 to 7. So she'll be a little bit more lighter. The drawing will be a little bit more lighter tone, but I'm okay with it just because I'm having to labor so much. With charcoal, those of you that know about charcoal, it's harder to control medium, I get it, but it certainly gets you to where you want to go with a little bit less labor as well. You don't have to push down as hard, because I break more of these pencils. I'm trying to see if I don't break one this entire drawing. I haven't yet. Usually I do, and I was like cursing off camera. I'm like, damn it, darn it. Let's see here. Through there, feeling that, and you can feel where the scapula raises up, interesting enough, and the hair kind of comes off that and over, like so. So it's all about that rhythm, all about that movement. Right, it's more than, it's not just the bass, all about that bass. Okay. And around. And over, feeling that rhythm coming over the hair. Pulling that over, that richness over, the fullness of the head, the back of her cranium tilted back, slightly looking downward to the right. She's looking back down that way. You can tell by the lean of the head back. And now this little area here where there's a little, see that little bulge right there that gives me a little lean too, and there's rhythm moving this way like so. We can even erase back a little bit with our mono eraser later on if we go dark enough, just to give us a little bit more rhythm. Get that little contour line on there. Whatever you do when you're drawing, as a general rule, this can be broken. All rules can be. So you don't want to get too dark too quick in this type of drawing, and that won't look as good aesthetically. You know, we have aesthetics, then we get that from our art historical antecedents, our rich Western traditions, which are being reevaluated today by contemporary artists, which is fascinating. Kehinde Wiley and others that are refashioning art history to their ethnicity, where they've been left out of art history, or gender. Women are gaining more power in the art world, which is, all these are new positive, I think, positive directions in the art world. We don't want it dominated by just one subgroup, I think. At least I'd feel like that's not positive. It really never was there. And so round, curling back into the head, you can see this movement. Like this, like so. And over. You just want it to be alive. You want that hair to be alive and not dead, not dead head. You don't want dead head, whatever that means to you. So I'm getting closer to what I want. I know this is not as dark as what the image, and I'm gonna say that, because we're pulling out a drawing and not a photos, that this is probably as dark as I'll get just because of the waxier pencil. And through here, and she's going to turn and curl up and over, and we'll get a little bit darker back in through this area, and on top. Do something like that. we get this extra little tuft of hair, which is really lovely. Gives it some liveliness and aliveness. Coming back over and through. And fullness here on the back as their hair hangs off that a little bit further and off the shoulder. Really lovely hair. Nice and full and wavy. Croquis Cafe does a really great job at the photographing their models. Hopefully their models are taken care of and paid, and they get the exposure if they want to model further with figure modeling, or some of them can be, model. This one can probably be a some kind of fashion model, probably. Little fullness there where it kind of curls out and back over and through the shoulder and through here. And then a little tuft kind of curling into, you're kind of interpreting now, a little darker into. Just don't want to get it too dark too quick or bury it in too much darkness or get it too busy. Not as busy as you think. And through here, go a little bit darker, pop that area out. So I've got a good feeling for, I think, of the hair and where I can finish it out a little later. I want to move on now and keep on going with the forms of the figure. I'm going to switch back to a red. Maybe I'll work a little bit of the background tone to continue on that way. Just to integrate that a little further into here. As we move on in the drawing. Indicate the little folds of the wall if you want. Okay, so moving in through here, working the top, looking for core shadowed areas mostly on the deltoid, up and through and around. Okay, through that bonier part of the scapula, the clavicle, where they start to curve around, kiss each other together. Remember the clavicle and the scapula kiss. This can come back. So a little tone. For me, I like a little tone, a little contour line through. Figuring out that tone now with the scapula. We've got the generalized values already set in. Lighter form shadow, turning, glistening away from the light into the shadow tone itself. We can play with line. Contour line is still our good friend. We don't want to forget about it. That's why these are not photo renderings where we forget about line. We use that lines for more renaissance. This will have to come in. The deltoid will come in some. Okay. You can't just stop it at the edge. It's got to come in and overlap and come inside and start to come around. Turn like so. Soft tone, okay, and overtone here. Turning it around and around. And I can hit that highlight a little bit later back with a little eraser, Japanese mono, or any eraser I want. A little boxier right in through here. Can you see how it's kind of flatter off the highlight? Mid-tone value, light form shadow. Right in through there, then downward. And bringing through there. Coming across and over. So it's going to turn into that coarse shadow, which we're going to go darker now. all this is going to get bathed. A little bit more dark shadow. Even this back here for now. Buttock region. Coming across, adding the core shadow in through. You have to be careful the anatomy. It doesn't end with the core shadow. There's reflected light back there. So get that through there. Where the scapula turns, the rhomboid area, and back to the back. Teres major and minor. Through there, then back to cast shadow here. And cast off, and then back into form shadow really quickly, right in through there. Here we go. Now we can start to turn this around, meaning that turning it this way into that shadow cavity or shadow area, and then core shadow through here. So I'll get that soft area, generally where I want the value to be, with these colored, with these Faber-Castell waxier pencils. Which I like them better than Prismacolor. I don't really like the Prismacolor. They're a little harder and denser, and therefore I'm going to jump up here and just see something I'm going to do. Just trying to set a darkest tone for myself. That's kind of what I'm doing here. This will cover a crevasse that I see that I want to maybe. So that's the darkest I ever want to go. Yeah, getting back to the pencil, the Faber-Castell. You know, you do with what you want. If you're in a different country, you may not have access. So anyway, they're not quite as soft as the Prismacolor, but I like the Faber-Castell. And then coming back up in through here with the core shadow, which also gets us that reflected light on that scapula area. And then once I get a softer tone that I like, then I come back with a little glistening contour line. That's just a stylistic thing for me. It's kind of my interpretation of academic Baroque Renaissance stuff. There we go. Pull that out just a little bit, soften that edge a little bit further. And bury this a little bit more in dark. Through here. So the core shadows first. Let's do that, and we'll come around to here. The contour line gives it a little direction. That's just a style thing. It's nice to have. So kind of a little bit more of a pen and ink kind of technique too, as well. Coming down and over. Getting that back across and then hitting this next core shadow. Right through there, you can see that starts to illuminate her further. It's going to get softer. Hang on. Defining that back of the scapula in that reflected light that they have set up on her, which is nice to get the back. The shadows, the detail in the shadows, not as important. Thin this out a little. Sometimes I don't say anything for a little bit, just thinking. Or trying to think. I'm not the smartest. Doing what I can. Do there. So now bringing this core shadow down, softening this up follows the rhythm of the rib cage about the 10th rib in through here. There we go, and over. Curling back across that rib cage. I'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to continue, make sure I stay in the shadow for a little longer to show you that core shadow part. Hit my core shadows all the way down. Coming through here. Okay, and then over. A little darker. Working that reflected light darker. And now I'm going to pop over here. This is a cast shadow now from the chest of the rib cage onto the lower back here, lumbar region that starts, and then it curls back. You see it curl back to the rib cage where that 10th, 12th actually rib is important there. Okay, and so what I want to do now is get this cast shadow laid in here, and I'm going to now come over. What's going to be really important is to get this back divot here where the spine trough is, where the spinous processes are, where the erector spinae ride across either side, left and right, of the spine, making the spine mostly a divot that goes underneath. A lot of students miss that. We don't want to miss that right in through here. So, toning in through here, a little darker coming down. It's kind of a semi-hard edge, not completely, but a little bit. So we don't want to leave it too soft or too hard edged. It's kind of in between. Various degree of contrast through there. So coming in through a nice little pocket right there. There we go. A little bit stronger. You can see I'm starting to put the edge on it. Curling it through a little bit of a divot, rhomboid area. There we go. The erector spinae, the spinous longissimus, right, in the iliocostalis, I believe. I forget the names. I always have to go back and check my notes. Always. In the anatomy section, you'll see me talk about that. So there we go. Names are important, but for artists, form and shape and understanding is, in that sense, is more important. It's a little bit different than doctors. I've had a few doctors contact me about it. They'll correct me on a few things, but overall they'll say that the information for drawing is pretty sharp. Some doctors that draw is pretty cool. I'll get a few little corrections here and there, or I'll misspeak on a certain where the muscle attaches when I've already lectured. I'm just drawing. I miss it some. But you should feel confident that all that information is pretty correct, I would think. Okay, keep going with the tone there. And then we'll widen this back out right in through there. And you can see now where there's some gathering there, so we'll come over. Some nice drawing contour line. Gathering of squeezing of the scapula into the rhomboids, into the lats, into the deltoid area, and so on and so forth. Okay. Come back over and gather that. Catch that. Now, this is all cast shadow within the reflected light. Here, creasing where that goes over. Here we go, to that little area where it creases. Really nice stress. Load-bearing weight up on the trapezius, pops out up and over a little bit. Keep that a little bit further. Punch that through. Show that coming over. Get her downward coming through here. So this is probably the darkest value I'll go. Could go a little darker, but I don't want to kill myself with time and you. This would be long enough. Hopefully you guys appreciate in YouTube land the length of these, definition of the drawing, and some narration. You can pay me back by sending candy to LEON. No, I'm teasing. I don't need any candy, trust me. So redefining now, cleaning up this tricep area, backing over to the elbow joints of the back. Keep that simple shape. Let the anatomy sort of go, see the shape, and enjoy the form of it too. Everything doesn't have to be crazy anatomical. Knowing it's great, though, for sure. But anatomy is not art. Anatomy is information. Okay, through here, core shadow. And all this is bathed in shadow tones. I'm going to go a little darker with a soft tone. Bring this over a little further. I haven't broken my pencil yet. I'm waiting for that crash moment when it happens. You always kind of, if you break your pencil a little bit, you kind of flinch. You know how that goes? Kind of scares you. I'm waiting for that moment. I haven't gotten there yet. Connect this hand a little bit further. There we go, and through here a little bit. And I'm going to do a little contouring over here. It's kind of like cutting incising, a little carving. Maybe that's even a better way of saying it. If you're more 3D oriented and you're trying to get better at drawing. It's like carving. Carving into that, all that good stuff. Your spine coming back and through here. You see that reflected light. In through here, that's the left side. That's not the right side, that's the left side. This is the right side on the edge of what we can see. Through there. Lower that buttock a little bit. It's a little too bulbous. There we go. That's it, coming through. Contour line for a little bit of line and tone texture, line and shading texture, which I prefer. And then a little, on here it gets a little lighter, and so I have to go a little darker on the edge where that reflected light is, but just a little bit. I don't have to go too much darker just to kill it off. I'm going to use a little bit of black in some of the crevasses, but I'm not going to go too crazy with that. I'll show you what I'm talking about. To give you a preview, I might take the black now in some of these deepest areas and just begin to do this a little here and through here, just to get a little bit further. I'm going to go too much. It's kind of like adding a little finished, little final crevassing contour through there. Soften that just a little to that spine. That slightly harder edge. Coming over, then moving, getting through. Here we go. Let me refresh my image here for a moment. Just a little bit of cleaning up, cross contouring there, slightly in the spine region. I have to be careful not to overdo it because I don't want to spend forever on it. A little darker where that touches, especially right up in through here. That's going to get a little crossing over darker. There we go. Okay, so I've got that. So now coming over right in through here, we have to be careful. Could go a little bit darker with their tonality, because you see from this cast shadow, which is a semi-crisp edge, because it's a cast shadow and it's then turning into the form shadow and through here, across the model, right, across the model, turning away, going this way now, with tone coming in this way. So if we come over here and we see that, so I start to blend this in a little further. As we come over, now I get to it, sorry. It takes me a little moment here to think. Is that this edge is harder, cast shadow. And then right in through here, see it gets dark. It's as dark as that cast shadow, it's the coarse shadow. But it stays, there's a little reflected light. That's the crest of the left side. And it's barely, it's almost on the edge, meaning that right here is where we get darker, which is our sacral area. And over to let that reflected light show just a little bit. We've got to go dark enough. It's right just before the turn to where the divot of the spine comes through. Here, I'll continue to show you that here. Okay, as it comes through. So we have to just be a little careful. This little reflected light right in through there. Put a little divot mark. Little edge coming across that and up and over. Coming through now, using the side of my pencil, defining her further. Beyond the 12th rib to the lat oblique area. Coming back up and over a little bit. I don't want to get too far in here yet. There we go. So it's starting to really illuminate. I'm going to take this line here, a darker pencil, cut in here a little bit. See how it's pretty dominant, but I can take my dark and cut in. I think it's a little too hefty for her. And cut in a little bit. pop out the condyle of the elbow here, and then back slightly. And I can correct that, and down and over. And it touches a little bit lower. Vary that line some as it touches, or all over, but as it touches to here. It's going to get a little darker than it overlaps the buttock. So that's important. I can change that. And I can slender this out if I want. It's pretty close. Maybe a little bit more downward trending here. So I can correct. It's a drawing. Let it be a drawing. I love saying that word, drawing. It's not a photo. It's a drawing. That's why it's important to get in front of a model, a live model, to learn that process, because the model's going to move on you quite a bit. So you have an interpretation when you don't have as a still image. When you draw it to your head, you don't have any model. You do whatever the heck you want, which is really refreshing. All right, so I got that. So see how I can cut into that and make that work a little bit better for us. Works nicely. So now I can come over here and begin to tease out some of these shadows since we're in a long-term pose. Short-term, if I've got 30 minutes, I stay out of the shadow, get the core shadow, stay out of the detail, and work the light for a quicker pose, or even like a 2-hour pose. It'd probably wind up being about 3 or 4 hours, which is not too bad, I suppose. Kind of an oval bulge here, coming through the model. Then around. So I'm using tone again. Tone, darkest part. What's that darker part called? Core shadow. There's that core shadow. Know your stuff. Know your vocabulary for that. You want to know those terms. Anatomy, know your forms. Commit them to drawing memory. So we're coming through here. Okay, and around and over. It's coming across the model this way. So contouring over on top of value is in itself kind of a stylistic thing, but it also forces you to think about the direction of which a form is being cross-contoured, or it's coming around, if you will, or how it's turning and moving. It's very sculptural in essence. Cast shadow down here. Down and over. Buttock cast shadow. Might even just leave the hand sort of a sketch. Yeah, I just made the drawing easier for us. You're welcome. Okay. Egg form, get a little bit of those flexors and extensors, all the muscle groupings, both the top and bottom are running through there, and it gets more tendinous as it gets lower to the wrist, which is probably going to get more slender, to have a tendency to bulk out figures a little bit on my own. Go there. Around, a little contouring to take that around. Take her through here now, really filling out the core shadow. Feeling where that's going to be darker, a little flatter into here to make a second pass at forms of the figure, buttock region, make them a little bit more appropriate to the model's forms. Bottom of the sacral coccygeal area right in through there. It gets a little bonier. Starts to be bonier. Then there's a little bit of a ridge, a hump, or a meatier part of the sacral area. It is right in through there. And if you draw it too dark over that, you can always go back and erase on top to get that little reflected light, because we're all doing mostly additive drawing. Much harder to erase into wax pencil form, but not impossible. Not impossible. Nothing's impossible. Except me having hair on top of my head anymore. I guess that's done without spending thousands of dollars. Oh well. Here we go. All you bald folks out there, you understand. Okay, so here and over, coarse shadow, form coarse shadow, and to cast. Cast here, form a little softer. That's why this edge is a little harder. Right in through, in a little, actually a little darker too. Cast shadows can be the darkest of the dark, really. Right in through there. Then soften a little bit to soften it up out of that transition, and then contouring back around and up and through there. Takes a little time to get all that, but you recognize it. Start to recognize it. You start to see it. There we go. Through here, back in through. And over. And this will still be darker as our block in. And come back over. Catch some more of that. So this gets a little, I'm always looking at this egg. See this eggy form? What is going on with that in terms of how can I make that really clean and working for me? Contour back this way a little bit. That's where that really turns into the light, turns its form. Soft transition up and over. And then we get this area where we start to get into the lights through here, and then this is going to tone and turn. So I'm working a little bit of both now. So I'm seeing it together. So I'm going to work in, see I can work into the background and bring it over. And then work the form, lighter form and darker form shadow here too. Then go a little bit darker. So some people, some students stay out, they treat the background like it was, how should I say, some kind of different entity, whether it's the same. So I can work the background and then work it into the light. So I can just run it together. See, I'm not ruining the drawing. Oh no, it's ruined. No, it's not. It's just integrated together now. And then when I need to go darker than the background, then I jump back in, and it doesn't leave an outlining halo, which can look really, really bad for your drawings. You have to be careful. See how I can erase too? I can come back and take out some of it, not all of it. Take out some of it when I need to later on. Get a little smudgy there. So those are things you can start to do as well. Whoops, and so coming back, softer tone. Then I'll come back with a little bit of contouring line in through here. There we go. Hump and bulge, hump of the crease there. Then I can come back and say, okay, a little darker. Then once I get it about the value that I want, I come back with a little bit of contouring, incised kind of line. That's just me. You don't have to do that. I mean, you don't have to do anything. If you're a YouTuber, if you're my students, well, it's not quite true, is it? There we come across that form. And if it's a little darker here, I can always take my eraser and get that highlight back. So I like to draw through the highlight and go back and get a little bit of that tone. Every drawing I tend to do in this kind of concept actually approach, which is these are concepts in drawing, are slightly additive and subtractive. Around and then watch this, and then back here, but really actually better to contour this way. So you learn about the form sculpturally. It's a sculptural way of drawing. Coming across the model, defining up the buttock, split of the butt cheek crack area, off the pelvic crests, girdle, if you will, coccygeal region and beyond, to the softer flesh of the gluteus maximus. So I'll probably take a little dark and just be gentle about defining in there in a little moment. Get back in these coarse shadows. Through here, this is the pelvic region where the underlying parts are. Through there, I forgot their names again. Through there. Pop up behind it and it gets fleshier, the tone. So it gets a little darker where that bone bulges and it's lighter where the bone is. Darker, or lighter where the bone is here, and then darker because it's a tone, and then where the reflected light of the muscle forms too as well. It's pretty fascinating. Turn it back this way. And on through. Keep that diagonal going. The buttock. Don't want to lose that. Going over. And then I'm going to come back here and go darker. Tone back so I can catch that later. Catch some of that definition. Get that. Back over and through here, and I want to go darker in the coarse shadow now. So it's all softer tones, side of the pencil for me. Then some contouring. I kind of continue on with that. Yeah, again, Pierre-Paul Prudhomme's drawings, is an artist I look at for that technique. He did multiple passes at his figures. He worked exclusively in charcoal and chalk, or chalks, and did that, and he would stomp out the smoothness and make it real smooth, and then go back and add contour line, and then redo it until he got what he wanted by 4 or 5 passes. It was pretty amazing. This is kind of a shorthand of that. But more contour line oriented, which I like a little bit better. So coming in here, trochanter area, and through here. Coming back back over, and then this little area where the under pelvic area is, which I forgot the name of it. Through there, and around, undercut here a little. And over. Where that coarse shadow is, right through there. Pushing down pretty hard. You have to really push a lot harder with these pencils. And then we get into the biceps femoris, little folder here. Right. It stays pretty full up until it wants to go and get over covered by the glutes. And where they kind of come together on that bench, a little dark right in through there, a little darker pop right in through there. We'll get that cleaned up a little further with the black, of course the hand too. Cast shadow. Coming down the model. Right, cast shadow. Bench. Weird kind of curve thing going on. Some kind of tally thing. Catch sweat and stuff. Hygienic. Working across, and we'll get that cleaned up in a minute. I want to go a little darker. Here, really pop out that sort of on the edge of the back side of the trochanter region, and start to come across contour it here. Soften, and also slightly darken. Different ways of thinking about that, and the dominant is to pull this way. Through there, back into the trochanter, on into the biceps femoris and glute connection, overlap there. Just kind of glossing over. Through here. Coming in through here, see that little darker bulge, tensor fascia lata region, not sartorius, a little bit too far over, iliotibial tract, rectus femoris, a little darker through here. Okay. So it's starting to work for me pretty well. I'm going to soften this out where the end of the pelvic unit is. The bottom. And then we're going to clean up the butt here in a minute. So if you have kids, you know what that means. But in this case, it's different. Soften that out a little bit further, work on that inner shadow, form shadow within the reflected light, which makes that fun and complex at the same time. So right in here is what I'm talking about. Here and over where that's getting pinched a little bit by the gravity of sitting down. And then back over. And then sitting down. And up and through. And we're just about home square with that area. We're getting further along. So I'll take the dark now. In areas like, what's a drawing, I might just go dark here because of this little area I like. Push it where all this comes together. Just a little there, since it's a drawing. It's not a photograph. Here, through. Not too much more to do here. Now we'll come over and stay out of the, there's a tendency to get in that core shadow. I don't want to get too deep in that core shadow. I want to keep it cleaner, not quite as dark. So we'll get over now to this cast shadow and just go a little bit further. And through here. Like so. Right into there. And then we'll come down here and over, right on the edge, right almost in the middle, not quite. I'm still on the left side, but just barely and not quite in the middle. Even that reflected light is still on the left, but barely. And then now we're back, she's turning back towards us a little bit, and we get to the center right there where the split of the crack ends. Coccygeal region. So we want to clean that up a little bit so we can see that. And now that we get to the separation of the left and right side of the glutes, here downward. And then over here, so. And then curve, gentle curve, and then she's really sitting down right in through collectively here. Gets a stronger line. It races off just a little, and then a deeper line right in through here. We get more of that cast shadow underneath. You can get pretty dark, kind of almost a dot, kind of a line to come through it. And so we have a little area where it's darker, and then it gets into reflected light again, but that's the right side, right there. And you get a little bit of left, or flattens. This might go a little wider, so pull it over, maybe take back the red. That comes through. Get that edge, maybe I'll take that on the dark like I did there, where they come together. They abut so well, it's what's in front of the other, they're just about abutting, the strongest sense of that word, so there's no dominant overlap, just a little bit more maybe to the arm, like so, and then we get this turning over the sacrum. Push a little bit more of that shadow just to help it along and through there. There we go, so that helps with that. I'm going to soften this just a little further. Reflected light, and form shadow, forming cast shadow, but all buried in shadow and reflected light. It's a complex little area. It's a little booger, no doubt. A little difficult part. Coming around. Okay, I'm coming back with the red a little bit. It's just about time to take a sharpen. See how that's down? So let me show you when I sharpen. I'll sharpen on here because it's not going to smudge. I can take it off. So just take that blade, clean out that I like to use a knife blade. These are carpenter knife blades. Use whatever you need, but I can control it since I'm right-handed. I can hold it in my right hand and then just gently sharpen it in my left pushing the thumb and clean that off so I can get that nice and light or sharper, lighter, sharper. There we go. And so I can use the side of that pencil as well as the tip. So I'll blow that off and then I'll wipe it off. Sometimes if you just wipe it off first, it might smudge a little bit on you, if you're especially if you're working in charcoal. So I'm going to come back and catch this over. Now I can really make a more contoury kind of line experience on top of that. Okay. And right through here, that's hitting a little bit stronger. It could go a little darker. And over to her leg. Okay. So now I think I'm going to go journey back up now. We'll continue on up in through here. See what we've got trucking in through. Alright, so we can start to hit this deltoid area further. And I still feel like she's a little bulky, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll do it in red first, and I'll come back and I'm going to kind of take this in just a little. And take her down just a little further there. Tricep region all the way over. The condyle popping out nicely. Which might be tucked back in because of the new position that we have. As we cropped, we learned about we can change direction if you have the knowledge or information to do that. It's okay if you don't. I didn't always have that. So we can come back in here. Catch that little bitty sliver of a cast shadow right in through there. Start to catch that. Soften this up a little bit. Bring out that breast in a moment. So I can just run all that into there. It's going to be a little darker anyway. This is going to come around for us. Basically just drawing tubes and cylinders and boxes and whatnot. It's an interesting word, whatnot. Coming down the breast, gets a little flatter, it hangs just a little bit more here. Coming through. Divots down a little bit more. Up and around. Soften it out. This is turning quite a bit this way, contouring through, soften. A little interesting background shadow. It's kind of a cast shadow back there. It's kind of cool on that breast to make it sort of stand out a little bit further. Nipple kind of coming back up and pointing outward. Just kind of a little knit tone for now. Up a little bit further, there we go. We can adjust that as we need, just very soft, subtle, supple there. So this area here, the lats, and the teres major in minorish area. So it connects over to that humerus back underneath, and underneath all the tricep stuff here. So I'm kind of keeping that anatomy, but we're going to change. I'm going to change this to here. This is probably too full, so I'm going to come across and do more of this. That's going to give us, it might give us more of that. So see that already. I'm going to change. And remember, it's a drawing, so I can do that. It's not a photograph by any means, because we couldn't do that in a photo unless you drew on the photo or splice photos together, which we're not doing. So I'll do that. Across and over. Thin this out dramatically. It's way too much material for her shape. She's not heavier. And so we'll get that. So the black can be also a corrective change. See the difference in the change? Don't be afraid to change. I've shown all these long poses, reasons why I kept this in the video. I wanted to show you that, how we got, here is the original gesture of that. Well, we're going to bring that in. And don't have to honor the image. We can change it, even when you have a live model. There's so much interpretation that you can do. And so we'll come back, and this is going to make that contour probably more like that. In our drawing. And so this is going to get connected here and then come over like so. Here. There's just a point you can't rely on the image or your model anymore. You have to be on your own, which can be a little scary if you're not used to that, I suppose. Through here. And around. Begin to change this further. Gonna bring in the elbow even, let's see. So change this up even more. So as I get to where I want it to be, up and through. Don't worry about that. And I can take this, bulge that in, that material's gonna bulge there and over. A little harder and heavier now since I'm adjusting. Get that shape. See that works out? You just trial and error, and you keep on working it. Keep on keeping on. Keep on trucking. There we go. Who was that artist? Robert Crumb. Keep on trucking. Those cool 70s, 60s, 70s. The high stepping dudes in their bell bottoms. Keep on trucking. Now coming back here, so I'm going to keep the tricep here, getting the form tone, contouring here, softening. There's a little bit more of a coarse shadow running through there, not by much. You can see there, and then we're going to turn a tone here, turn. Get that deltoid to really come in a little bit with another line, right there, a stronger line. You don't see it on the model. There's a lot you don't see because it's a drawing. But I need this to come in just a little bit, running through there. Put a darker line too to show that stays there. Is behind it. But that this deltoid comes over with the bicep then. Underneath it slightly. That's why we get that darker area. And then we can do this with our contouring. Then through and around. Then we get the scapula and the trapezius, and we get the clavicle, roughly on the back side of it, but you see the idea here. Get a little bit darker now. And the bulge here now. The divot. And through. So softening up here around the lat, teres major and minor, but just the shoulder coming over and through softly, and it wants to pull a little further. You can see it pull this way, but softly, very subtle. It's pulling there, and then right in through here, the lateral part of the scapula. It's a little pointy there. Softer here to that head of the deltoid, 3 heads of the deltoid, posterior, anterior, or front, back, and lateral. Coming over and through now, wrapping around here, back on through. Beneath the breast form here. A little softer. Coming around the back, rib cage area, through here. And the front of the side of the rib cage. I'm going to go a little, pop in a little cast shadow dark. Right in through there. A little gathering of underarm. Start taking this line there darker, and then take it down just a little bit dark, and then let it fade to light. Go a little darker here. Play with that line. Light and dark, and then red and black. Black showing shadow, red showing kind of light and flesh a little bit further too. Coming around. Softly in the rib cage. Run through here. And little contour in it. Indicate more of the rib cage anatomy. With the lat on top. And we get a little bit of, I'm going to put a little coarse shadow of dark here so I can get that reflected light to show through. Need that little bit right in through there. There we go. To get that tricep to bulge a little bit. And we can pull this around, contour it. And tricep, I'll go back to red. Or excuse me, I'll go back over here to pull that scapula around in that dark cast core shadow, casting core. Soften that up and over and through. Just to pull that over, let that back come over. around. So again, edge contrasts, different type of edges, really crisp, really sharp, really soft versus places that are in between. It's not just one or the other, but it's a level of contrast between them that are really important. Here we go, the bulge here. Pull that out. Up and through and down. And around and over, backside, just to be a little bit more defined. We can get ultra defined, but we can leave it a little bit. So I'm going to pull this out just with dark, just a little. Okay. There we go. Hit that really dark in some of those areas. Not satisfied with the deltoid yet here, so we can come over and tone this back a little bit so we can just get the highlight there. And then a little bit of a pocket through there. And then that deltoid head that's soft on her. We don't want to make that too anatomically rigid because she's not. You know, her counterpart, a fit male, it might be more, probably would be. We don't want to be on her. Turn that pencil over a little bit just to get that real strong definition that I wanted. I'll use the palm technique 95 to 98% of the time, and then when I need to use the writing technique, I'll pop in there here and a little bit of a bulge up and through and back longer and leaner through here. A little softer coming through. Back through, a little contouring across there. Then if you want to pull out the highlight even further, it's not a very strong highlight, but you could take it here, Japanese mono eraser that I've got, and clean it out a little bit further. Just kind of rub it off, and you can come back up in here and kind of start to clean out, and you can kind of come contouring with it around here as well, get that look. It's harder to get with wax, but that you get that a little bit, takes that out a little further if you want. And then we're just about defining in through here, just about fairly satisfied with this. Coming down a little bit. And turning. Not too much left here to do. I'm going to pull this ribcage off as it turns back in, right in through there. You can see it turn because the breasts sit on top of that. There we go. And this could turn. Contouring could come in this way. A little bit more dark. Probably a little harsher line. Take that out. If I can, let's see. A little harsher. Soften it up just a little. Okay. A little bit more shadow here and a little bit skin tone change where there's less sun exposure on the breast, a little bit more on the skin tone. Here we go. Then I'll come back with some contour. Right in through there. A little stronger shadow. In through. So now we can come up to the hand now, the arm and the hand here on the top and really get cleaner with this. So I'm thinking about muscle anatomy through here. Some of the extensors and the flexors here, the extensors here, just to give a little bit of more definition. This would lean in down. And you know what, a little bit even thinner here. So now I come in with my little bulkier here, dark to there. And then that's going to change over. This is all out of my head now. Definition out of the head, really getting more defined. And then we're coming through. And this, you're going to feel this little bulge, ulnar P area over through there. So coming over and through here. Feel this a little bit further. Basically signifying the end of the wrist to those tiny little carpal bones. If you have carpal tunnel, I don't, but if you do, you understand. And this is going to bulge in here because of that tension. I'm imagining. I don't know for sure because I don't have a model, so I'm winging and going off my own knowledge. Which is good, which is a good challenge. And I've got a lot of knowledge, and that's why we can start to share it and have the confidence to do that. Triceps coming over a little bit further. Softer and through, connected, back up to here. Okay, so now what we have is we have this egg form of the extensor muscles, forearm muscles. I'll just keep saying that. I'm confused. Running through here, core shadow, because we're getting light source from the top left. And now we're coming down over. It's going to bulge in through here. tendon out a little bit. Move through now. Over, and then we'll clean up these, start to clean up this area of the fingers. Not completely satisfied, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull this downward here, knuckle, condyle, feel that there, and then downward through. Just thinking about blocks in tubes and cylinders, I'm going to have to give that a little bit of more of a push there. There we go. Just to clean that up further. There we go. You can see that a little bit better. Because this shadow's going to have to start reading like these a little bit more now. Coming on through, this is going to bulge out like an egg, this whole area where the knuckles, the carpals, metacarpals are, through here. She'll flatten this out a little bit further. There we go, through. And the first proximal knuckle, roughly right in through here, coming off that. So this is going to come way over. Reading that through here. Turning that thumb and then kind of to slightly to the side, and then this part of the palm, thenar, grouping of muscles, that pocket there. We'll come over. So I'm going to start to clean that up a little bit now with the dark too as well. So we need that to be grouped over. So I'm going to come back over into here. Going to feel this pop back. Do it round that out, that knuckle, metacarpal. I'll throw that back in shadow. This one too. And then around, square that off, then around here. There's the top of the condyle, the proximal. Then the end of the median, part of the medial, right through there. Curve that around. And we can really pop that over for the distal. Start to see that start to take a little bit better shape than what I had before. There we go. So we can, this might even curve over here now. So ultimately I'm going to put that all in shadow. Hide some of that, those changes. Can learn to start to hide them. getting that condyle there, or knuckle, if you will, running through. Come over and lay over for us, and it's going to bulge out like so. And then come back on in and underneath with a little bit of condyle curve. And then we can start to just bury that into a deeper shadow. It starts to work for us. You want to hint at that anatomy, but yet we don't want to get too deep in there. We don't want to call too much attention if it's still not completely clear, because it's not the most important. The most important part is here we want to get the shapes right and use our anatomy or knowledge that you built on to make these kinds of changes. And these are one way of several where they start to come in handy. So this is going to come down further. So into the condyle, roughly kind of curved, and over, and then it's going to start to bulge where the fat muscle pockets are a little bit curved through, like so. This will be pocket or divot to hint at the tendon and the bone running underneath, like this, like so. I say that a lot, I know, like so. And so they're really here, well, yeah, roughly right in through there. Makes this a wonderful challenge. So I'm going to stay darker with the anatomy over here. Pull that back way over. Palm separation. Get pretty dark in through there with that change. And then coming over. So I try to look over at the image. I realize, hey, it's not there. Okay, it's like it's not going to help you. Okay, so this is going to change. I can make corrections with different pencils here and over, down and through. And that might just disappear through there and be enough. Then I'll stick to mostly red here. Almost kind of like what I have, is I kind of let it fade out a little bit edgewise here. This might even bulge over more. Cover that almost. So it foreshortens that over. So kind of like that. So I'm going to take my tongue and kind of, well, I'm going to take my eraser actually, which is in my hand, and take that out. So I kind of like what I have there now. It's starting to work for me. Took a while. So look what we started with, and you can see the image and what we shaped that down to be to make it work better. Pull that around. And shadow mine, and then start to really begin to clean out that. Turn this wrist over, square it up, and then turn it down. And around. Get that idea of the twisting part of that on her anatomy just a little bit further. I'm going to kill it with anatomy. There we go. All right, it feels pretty good to me. Right in through there. Okay, so I'm back now for the last round. I took a break. I think what I'm gonna do is abbreviate a little bit. I'm gonna work a little bit more in through here and just tighten things up, and I'm gonna leave this, and I think we've got everything we need to accomplish from I think this drawing, this video. That'll shorten it up mercifully for you. We can get on to one or two more for long-term poses. So, so let's take it to a long-term sketch conclusion, and I think that'll be merciful for everybody involved. So I want to again work on here. I'm a little bit not completely satisfied after having taken a break, just riding through here and pulling that finger back. And I like what's happening with this pinky. Just a little change in there, and I think I've got what I needed through this region of the drawing, right in through here. I'm going to pull this back a little bit more shallow. See how we can take all that and just change what we need to get what we need from that drawing in through there. So just going to tweak a few areas that I want to show you right here in the shoulder. Pull this downward, this toning right in through here downward. Go a little bit darker in through there. We can get that to pop for us a little bit darker in certain areas. Then right through here, I'm going to tweak this. When I mean tweak, I'm just going to add to it or change it just a little bit. That's a language issue. Sorry about that. So then through here and over, and then around. And so of course she's flexing a little bit further, bringing that hand over and through. Arm and hand. So that might pull this a little bit more in shadow. And through there. There we go. I'm going to take a little bit of what that photograph is giving me to give a little bit more contrast to the breast form. And through there. Just a touch more, not too much more. There we go. So I can bring that background tone into the tone of the model's light form shadow. It doesn't really affect it, so you want to integrate those two when you can. Through there. Alright, so just tweaking a little bit, changing a little bit. This can go a little bit darker in this crevasse, slightly in through here from the after scapula sits on top of the rib cage. It gets pulled off of it just a little bit. And then final kind of contour line. Right in through here. And softening a little. Take a little bit more darken through here. Finish this sketch. Just going to leave that as it is. Most of this as it is. Most of what we had is the top here. That's a good enough, I think, example diagram. And the image of the model will be at the end so that you can draw from that. You have a bigger image to pull from. They're also on Croquis Cafe, this pose, and many millions, or hundreds, thousands more. Pull that around and soften that up a little bit further. There we go. It's all about fine-tuning little areas of softening and darkening. right in through there. Take a little bit more dark now. Let me bring this over just a little bit further down to pull off this coarse shadow a little stronger now that I see it, of what I've got going in my drawing. Pull that little final bit there. And pull this around a little bit, soften that through. Pull that divot, that spine back just a little bit further in there to make that work for me. Bring out this fold roll. Have her back bulging in together to the spine somewhat. Then I'm going to take this coarse shadow and do this here. A little dark to it, make that fun. That last part of it through here, go a little bit darker and soften if I can. There we go. Bring that leg over a little bit just to overlap that. That's all I'm going to touch with that leg, I think. There we go. And have a little fun with the contouring, a little bit more aggressive with it, more abstract, a little more loose and fun. There we go, through there. Just a few more minutes. Well, I could spend a little bit more time with the hair, couldn't I? Sure, do that a little bit more. Could use a few passes. Yeah, I think now's a good time for that. So let's finish that up a little bit. So let's jump in now on that hair. I'm going to pull it down the camera a little bit so just get it closer to me. I'm having to reach so far. So we don't have to bother too much with this, but we can go and get a little bit darker in certain areas of that and get a little bit more flow. I mean, it's got a nice flow together already, but we can start to pull that in a little bit further and go for a few darks in certain areas. We'll pop in just to out the flavor of the hair. We want to get the feeling of it. It's not a photoreal drawing. Get the flavor of that curling up. So we're drawing the dark negative space around the lighter areas. If you can wrap your head around that. No pun intended, to get that to work for you. We'll bring this hair here a little bit, soften this up. Some of that transition's pretty hard. Sitting on top of that shoulder, right in through there, we have to make a pretty strong little area. Kind of a curl through here. There's some kind of waviness with the curl, so I'm trying to mimic a little bit of that, not to be overdo it, but just get a little bit of the curl as it wraps in through. A bit of action through that, darker through there. And then fill in some of this space in through here. I'm going to come back with a pass of the red just to fill more of that back through here. And around. through rhythm and movement, rhythm and tone together. Tonal movement, rhythm of the stroke, trying to mimic what I'm seeing in the gestural patterns of the hair. It's all about the stroke and movement rather than every single follicle. That'll drive you nuts. It's not really drawing as it is kind of just copying. Curving in, debit, pockets, curl around, and up and over. This is going to flow through a little bit, maybe a little bit deeper into here in the dark. You can soften what's around it. Come back over here to a little more divot here. A little bit of a shadow there, shadow over that. Here on the scapula. So you kind of leave those edges where the hair falls out a little bit, a little blurry. That'll give you kind of multiple hair that's making those rhythms. It's not just one, but several. Hundreds actually, probably. Then coming down off the hair. Mop that in, make it a little bit more tonal. Just about what I want to get out of this, I think. We want to imply the head structure through there. We took some great pains to have to feel that out, to figure that out a little bit. That's important. Kind of hair feeling over the shoulder. It's very kind of impressionistic. You look at Degas, Monet's figurative work to get that to work really nicely. Velasquez. A little tightening up here where her hair touches. There's a pretty raised up off the head, but there's thickness to that which we want to get to. Okay. I don't want to do too much more. I think I'm just about where I'd like to end the drawing. Just a few little areas of tweaking. I'll remove this contour, this shadow across this arm, hand. Back in through there, we can work a little tone back to catch it back here. Let's pull this out a little further and make it nice and move. Give it a little bit more movement. You can do quite a bit more if you want. A little bit darker back here, just for a touch of it. Just to integrate that darkness on this hand a little bit further. Contouring around. Bring out one little tendon form here to give it a little bit more definition. Pop that out a little bit. Might take my kneaded eraser. You could take your kneaded eraser and kind of clean it out and dab at maybe a little bit of lighter areas. Maybe I could go, if I wanted to take this a little lighter, not really, but just touch that up a little bit. Maybe I want to reclaim this just a little bit, and I can dab at it or I can stroke it like so. I'm going to put more of a highlight here across, and then also back on the shoulder just a little bit. I'm going to take my my eraser here, my mono eraser. I'm going to clean that out just a little bit. Rub it on something just to kind of clean it off a little bit, and then come back and grab that shoulder shadow. I'm going to go this way with the stroking pattern just to pull it off just a little bit there. And then grab maybe this edge. Very subtractive quality. You can get some of that in a wax Faber-Castell kind of drawing. You can even come back and catch this reflected light. Just take it off just a little bit if I want. Still very sketchy and loose. And you can come back and catch a little bit of that edge if you wanted to, just a touch of it. To be a little careful here, and then on up and around where we are here. Could be a little harder edged. Pull that off of it's almost kind of like another hair, roughly. Get it in through. Keep it mostly tonal, so you need a little bit of those negative spaces to come through for you. You can kind of cut into those spaces a little bit. Have what you want. I'm going to go a little darker here. I have not broken pencil yet. Pretty happy with that. Pretty amazed at that as well. So little spots of drawing, darkness. I like to add to the drawing. It's not on the model. It's in my mind, drawing mind. A little bit darker, thicker through here. Another core shadow, kind of contouring around, feeling that out. Bulge in through there, the tension of the leg and the buttock, the thigh, all that come in together. Places where she's sitting down a little bit. Define that further with some incised lines and holding down a writing style to get that feeling of that coming out and through. Indicate that cast shadow went through there. I'm not going to finish that out. Okay, there's not much more to there. So again, the challenge was to change this hand position quite a bit and let that show you the difference between, you know, this gesture and that one, and changing that for the pose and cropping a little bit, which I think hopefully is demonstrated well for you, so you can have the confidence to do that. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to, and you can be very literal with your interpretation, or you can have quite a bit of change in the drawing too as well. I'm gonna flatten this little area. It's going to be a little flatter for now. Then bulge there around. Okay. Just a few more passes here of stuff. there. It's still staying pretty loose. Pretty much, it's very much a drawing. Let it be a drawing. Don't be afraid to make it a drawing. Not some kind of photocopy. There's plenty of that going on. So I'll come back up here just a little bit. Add a little darker hair tone here. Turning that through here. And then around. Easing off of that. Coming back up through the lights. Catching it underneath. Okay, I think I'm just about there. All right. Okay, so just a little epilogue here, if you will. I wanted to show you some of the changes I made off camera at the end. So I added onto the hand. I wasn't really satisfied with just having the position there. It seemed a little unnatural. And if it was an actual pose, then that hand would have to be stabilized. So I put a little bar or like a little pole she might be holding that's stabilized somewhere else, just an imaginary thing, on having her grip it some. And I think that works actually better with the pose that I chose out of my head. Because remember, again, we had really this gesture. I'll bring it out a little bit further. Don't be ashamed and to change things. You need to alter. You notice I altered. I slendered down the hand a little bit. It was still too wide, and she might be even a little bit girthier than what she really needs, but that's just more of a style thing. I'm fine with it, but I took this down a little bit and just kept that as mostly a sketch down and through here. Sometimes, when you end sketches, you can end them in aesthetic ways that just make them look a little, kind of cooler or fresher in your own little way. And a little gesture down at the end. I put a little border. I take a little piece of paper and go underneath and make a little border. I don't do that with a ruler. It just looks a little bit kind of fresher. And then, I made a little bit of highlights in the hair. Not a whole lot because of the paper. And quite frankly, it's hard to erase in this wax here. Pencil, and that's generally why I don't like to do tone drawings too much with wax. I like sketching with wax, but not a finished tone. But those are the things, the changes that I made. And again, we made a drawing, so we have texture on this drawing. We have hatching and cross hatching a little bit, and tone, and using line and tone together to make a drawing and not a photographic reproduction. If that's what you're after, then you probably want to go someplace else. Well, I mean, it's really all the same, light, value, edges, and contrast, but it's so to a photographic kind of connection. I think you're better off starting drawing with these concepts and then moving on to that over time. You can look at the work of Richard Estes. He's probably the most well-known photorealist. Chuck Close, his earlier work, would certainly be in that vein, but this is more Renaissance, Baroque type based approaches that get you in the ballpark, and really good drawing that really carries you over to quite a bit of drawing training later on. That's why we do that here at NKU, and then we have our students look at the total of art history, postmodern drawing, modernism, everything under the belt, abstraction, so they can really begin to see a complete range of things. And you also notice with the hand, I put this hand and I buried it a little bit more in shadows, if it was being covered up by something out with not quite direct, where she is a little bit more direct. It'd take a little bit of kind of the heat off of that. I could have done that over here, but I wanted to leave some of these corrective lines. Don't worry about it. I love the sketchy quality. That's okay to show that. Let that show. Let that be part of your sketch history. There's nothing wrong with that. And that kind of practice is littered in really throughout the Renaissance and the Baroque era with sketching. They're really sketching not for conclusion, but for exploration of poses. And so they weren't really meant to be shown at all to an audience. It wasn't until much later that we became interested in those. They were actually quite secretive. So, okay, there you go with this long pose. and we'll move on now in our study. See you next time. Bye-bye.